Hello and welcome to Freedom Watch, your daily dose of raw liberty, streaming online at foxnews.com. I'm your host, Judge Andrew Napolitano, here defending freedom, defending your natural rights, and defending your right to have a government that stays within the confines of the Constitution. Rising unemployment and likely inflation, the falling dollar and talk of an alternative global currency, and gold reaching record highs. What's happening to our economy? Can it and will it rebound? Here with some answers, Connecticut Senate candidate and president of Euro-Pacific Capital, Peter Schiff. Peter, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Judge.
The government says the recession has bottomed out. Do you buy that?
Not a chance. The recession has got a long way to go. In fact, if you look at the recent data that came out a couple days ago, GDP is now 71% consumer spending. That's an all-time record, or at least a record since the Second World War. And that shows me that the economy is getting more out of balance, and we haven't even begun to address the underlying economic imbalances that make the recession necessary.
What are we doing wrong, or what is the government doing wrong, that gross domestic product, GDP, is that high?
Well, I mean, spending. What
Right.
the government is doing is the government is encouraging more spending through reckless borrowing. The problem is we need less consumer spending right now because we spent too much. We need consumers to save money. We need savings to go to businesses so they can make capital investments, so they can expand, so that we can be more productive, so that we can create more jobs. But none of this is happening. If all of our wealth is being squandered on present consumption, we're digging ourselves into a deeper ditch, and that is being reflected in the weakening value of the dollar. The foreign exchange markets understand that all we've got is inflation. We're printing money. We're not making stuff, so we're driving down the value of our currency, and you can see that reflected in the record high price of gold. All of this is going to come to a head soon, I think, in a real currency crisis. If our dollar, takes a big drop, moves down maybe 10 or 20% or 30% in a short period of time, then we're going to be right back in a serious recession, except we're going to have very high inflation and very high interest rates simultaneous with that recession, just like they're having in Iceland right now.
What is the role of the Chinese government in the value of the dollar worldwide? Is there some nefarious or evil goal here, or are they just doing what's best for themselves and their economy?
Well, I think maybe they think they're doing what's best for themselves, but they're not. They're actually hurting themselves. They came out today, China's reserves now stand at $2.3 trillion. They're up another $200 billion or so in the last couple of months. What that represents is purchasing power transferred from Chinese citizens to Americans by the Chinese government. Because in order to maintain the value of the dollar so we can keep buying Chinese goods that we can't afford, the Chinese government had to buy up $200 billion more U.S. dollars to prevent the dollar from collapsing. If they didn't do that, we wouldn't have been able to buy all those goods because our currency would have fallen. But you know what would have happened? The Chinese RMB would have risen, and all of a sudden all these Chinese workers would have been able to afford the products that right now they ship to us. So even though maybe they think that they're helping their export economy, they're hurting their domestic economy. And China would be much better off if they kept their stuff and let us keep our paper money instead of the other way around.
All right, so let me get this straight. We have a problem caused by too much borrowing and spending. So in order to cure this problem, we borrow more from the Chinese. The Chinese are worried about the value of the dollar. In order to shore up the value of the dollar, they get more dollars.
Yeah, but remember, we're not trying to cure the problem. We're trying to prevent the problem from being cured because the cure is painful. The politicians don't want the cure. What they want is a way to postpone the cure by pushing off the problems to a later date. That is all they're doing, right? We're doing exactly what we did in 2001 and 2002 when Bush and Greenspan refused to allow a recession to run its course. Instead, they slashed interest rates, they stimulated the economy, and they created the problems that finally manifest in 2008. Now we're doing the exact same thing, but the problems are so much bigger now, and the stimulus is so much bigger to try to postpone it that we're not going to buy as much time. What they did in 2001 and 2002, we got about 5 years of phony prosperity that we're now paying for. I think this time we're not going to get as long a period of phony prosperity. Maybe they're going to buy 1 or 2 years, 3 years max, and then we're going to have a collapse so much worse than anything we've experienced in the last year.
Are you surprised that gold is over $1,000 an ounce today?
I'm surprised it's not over $2,000 an ounce. I mean, I think that the world is still not grasping the significance of what's going on. They still don't appreciate the real predicament that the U.S. economy is in, you know, how precarious our banking system is, how we're totally dependent right now on this artificial life support of 0% interest rates, and the Fed was pretending that they stand ready to raise interest rates as soon as inflation becomes apparent. That's all a bluff. Inflation is already getting worse. They can't raise interest rates. They're in a huge box. And when the world figures out the extent of this problem, I think gold is going to just go ballistic. But I think for now, people should take advantage of other people's short-sightedness and complacency and buy gold, buy silver, buy commodities, get rid of your dollars, buy foreign assets before the dollar loses much more value.
And before I let you go, the government thinks it can help liquidity by suppressing the compensation packages of executives at major banks. Won't that cause a flight of talent away from those banks?
Look, I mean, this whole thing, it's a Pandora's box that they've opened, because they should have no say in setting compensations anywhere. But the problem is they bailed out all these companies. They should have let them fail. The compensation that I think a lot of these executives should be getting is zero, or just the compensation of an unemployment check, because they should have lost their jobs when all their bad bets went sour. Instead, their buddies in government bailed them out with massive amounts of money, and now Wall Street is making even more money, record amounts of money, taking cheap, free money from the government and just speculating with it. And so now, there's such an outrage and such a backlash that the government wants to come in and now regulate and set salaries. And what I'm afraid of is that they're going to go even further. This is going to be the camel's nose under the tent. They'll start regulating and setting salaries for all sorts of companies, even companies that have nothing to do with getting government bailout money.
Peter Schiff, thanks for joining us on Freedom Watch.
Sure, thanks for having me.